We will do a wrist check today as well.
Sweet.
Okay, great. Tiki, we're live here on LinkedIn. So cool to be here with you, man. Let me just do like kind of a real quick introduction, set the table. We'll give an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the audience. And then I've got some questions for you because I've been so looking forward to this conversation. And I know you and I just met, I don't know, what, like 4 weeks ago or something like that?
Yes. LinkedIn's a wondrous place, right?
I know. It really is. It really is. So my name's Eric Walters. So I own TimelySoles. I also own watch trading software. So I'm huge into the watch space. I'm also a 3-time VP of sales in the tech world. Was in tech for about 20 years. I left my W-2 in November of last year and just went all in on the watch market. I have been a big alternative asset guy for about 20 years as well, really, from like sports memorabilia and sports cards to exotic cars, luxury watches. And luxury watches are like really the area that I specialize in on LinkedIn, where a lot of my content is written. And obviously I sell luxury watches as well. So, and that's how you and I got connected, because you saw my content on LinkedIn and you're like, who is this guy writing about watches? And I see watches on my feed, which is really cool. And we got connected and started talking. I was like, man, this guy Tiki has a story and we have to broadcast this to our friends on LinkedIn so they can learn what you have done, which is fascinating. So we will get into all that, but why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and then we can go from there.
Absolutely. So good to meet everyone. My name is Tiki Biswal. So I'm currently a sales director at HubSpot. Have been here for about 13 years now, which has been a wild journey.
A long time in tech, man, to be in one place.
It is. I mean, I came to HubSpot. I remember my friend was like, hey, this place is paying 10K more on your base salary. You should look at it. And I was like, cool, I'll look at it. And like, here I am 13 years later, having seen the company scale and grow. I think I was employee 460 or something like that. And we're over 8,000 now. So it's been quite a journey. As you were saying, I all of a sudden I started to notice that there were some watches popping up on LinkedIn. And I was like, I'm usually on LinkedIn reading sales advice and posting sales advice and things like that. And so I was like, someone showed their watch delivery today. I was like, that's really exciting. And so I just started to follow more of the content and started to realize there's a big community of people that, work in tech or work in sales that also are passionate about watches. So nice to see those worlds kind of collide and very excited for the conversation.
For sure. So I remember you reached out to me, just sent me like a DM, and I was like, hey, let's schedule a call. I always love talking to other watch guys, or even watch gals, because there's definitely watch gals out there too. And you start to tell me a little bit about your story, and you start to tell me what's actually in your collection. And I was like, hold on a second. Wait, you have that in your collection and you have that in your collection? I was like, I have clients that are CEOs, like venture capitalists, own businesses, and they don't even have these type of collections. Like, what are you doing, man? So you told me your story and I said, we gotta like literally broadcast this out. So let's just go ahead and jump into it, man. And I just want to kind of first start with like kind of high level question. Like, how did you get started in watches? What was like the first real watch that you bought, and what made you pull the trigger on that first one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. My mom likes to remind me that when I was 4 years old and we were on a family trip to India, we went to visit Bangkok. And one of my earliest watch purchases was working with my dad to negotiate on a yellow Batman watch for myself at age 4. And so it's funny, as I started getting really into watches, my mom was like, you've always been into watches. So I found that little tidbit interesting. So fast forward to 2016, and I'm, looking at watches all day on the internet and researching them all the time and starting to move up in my career as well. So I was like, I think it's time to get a real watch, right? I've always had the classic Timex and Casios and G-Shock and all that, but like, let's get a big boy watch. So first purchase in the middle of 2016 was a black Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. I think it was like $1,800. I remember being at that time both uneducated and a little bit cheap. And so I remember buying the quartz option because it was a lot cheaper than the automatic, despite the salesperson trying to explain all of that to me. And so that was really the first start. I started wearing that to work every day. I was 5 days a week in the office at HubSpot, and slowly other watch people were like, oh, you got a tag. Oh, you're getting into it, right? So I started to notice like there was this little bit of culture of that at work. It's gotten a lot more of a culture now, but it was there. So that was the first big boy watch that I bought, and within 6 months I would start getting into the other purchases.
Yeah. And so at what point did you realize that this was going to be more than just the tag, and you were going to start collecting and turn it into even like more than a hobby?
Yeah. So I think it was probably when I bought my second or third Rolex that I was like, oh, like I want to build an actual collection here. Right. And at that time, it wasn't, I think, like secondary market value and supply and demand, like Rolex was not as big at that point. Like I remember walking into my AD and they were like, what do you want to look at? And I was like, Sub, Batman, Daytona. They're like, yeah, we got them all. Let's take a look at them. Right. Like, so it wasn't
insane.
Yeah. It wasn't like, let me go find these like high demand watches and build a really wealthy collection. It was like first the mental step of like, hey, you're going to spend $7-8 grand on a real watch. And then you're going to do it again. And so it was really like the second and third ones where I was like, oh, I'm not going to be a one watch guy. Like I want to build a well-rounded collection.
And, I went through this same phase when I started to make money in tech, and, the advice that you get from, our culture is like, you need to put your money back into the 401k. You need to put it into a rainy day fund. You need to put, money into stocks. And that's the traditional type of advice that we get. Maybe buy some real estate. And I always was like, I did all of that, right? Don't get me wrong, I did all of it, but I was just extremely bored by it all, right? I like to experience things. I like to use my money to experience something. And when I discovered that, I could get into alternative assets that could actually preserve value and grow in value and offer unique experiences, that's when I was totally hooked. And watches are obviously a great alternative asset. What was like that decision point for you? Like, did you forego investing in real estate or stocks or anything else, or did you do both of them? Like, how have you approached that?
I'm going to give you the most salesy answer ever, right? It's like, why don't we do all of it, right? So I grew up, I think, was raised to be pretty conservative about money, right? And it was like max out the 401k, buy the house. So like I did do all of that, right? And I do think in my watch collecting part of it, it wasn't really until the last couple of years where I started to really look at that as like, oh, that is a portfolio of assets, whether or not people call it that, right?
Yeah,
when I bought my first Rolex, my friends were like, you're crazy. Like there are so many different other things that you could spend that money on. And they were spending that money elsewhere. They were flying first class to Fiji or whatever it was. So like, I think I was like in other areas of my life, I would rather live under my means and know that I'm allocating budget to buying something that, yes, at a minimum is going to hold value, might actually gain value. But at the end of the day, like I get to enjoy it. And so I was kind of on an island for the first few years where I knew that I was doing that. I was like, I can wear and enjoy this thing and beat it up. And probably if I needed to at the end of it, sell it for more than I paid for it. And it's nice to know that. But I also think like, I don't look at my watch collection as necessarily like liquid. Like I like knowing what the values are. I like knowing roughly what it's worth, but I have other areas where I'm like, I have liquid money if needed, I like to think about them ideally as long hold stocks.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. And so for those that aren't familiar with the watch market, right? So like what we're talking about here are, brands like Rolex. There's also brands like Patek Philippe. There's brands like Audemars Piguet that are very popular within the watch world. And in fact, they're so popular that they appreciate once you buy them at, for retail. Now, they didn't always used to do that as aggressively as they do today, right? So like Tiki shared a story where you could actually go into a Rolex boutique and you could buy, some of their most popular models. You really can't do that today. It's because the manufacturers have squeezed the supply, and there's different reasons why they've squeezed the supply. But these watches just aren't attainable. You can't walk into a Rolex boutique, ask for a Rolex, GMT2 and get one. It just doesn't happen. You can't walk in and ask for a Daytona and get one. It just doesn't work, right? So what is so unique about this story is that you have actually built out a collection of these timepieces that are literally impossible to get at the authorized distributor, right? So you buy these type of pieces at a boutique, a Patek boutique, an AP boutique, a Rolex boutique, or a boutique that happens to have the license to sell that type of product directly to the market. And so I want to kind of take the conversation down that path of like the AD piece, right? So, and I want to tie it back into your tech sales career, right? So like in tech sales, like it's about building relationships, it's about nurturing relationships, growing relationships. And you obviously have done this really well with these authorized dealers because you're getting these pieces that are nearly impossible for the general public to get at retail, right? And that's the most fascinating part of this whole story. So talk to us a little bit about like, how do you treat these ADs like a key account? And like, how do you even find an AD in your area? If you could just kind of give the audience like the real basic understanding of like how this whole model works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all relationship building, right? And do I think there was an advantage showing that I was into watches before watches were hot? Like, absolutely, right? But I still think like ADs are looking to sell watches to people that are genuinely interested in watches, show a passion for watches, are willing to be patient. Now, are there things that you can do if you're not as patient and you'd like to speed things up? Definitely. And I think we can get into some of that stuff. But it's just like a sales process, right? Like, do you think an in-person meeting is more effective than a Zoom meeting? Like, I think at the end of the day it is, right? Like, same applies to your ADs. Like, if you're not going there and willing to show your face and have a conversation about watches and develop a relationship, just like a sales process, it's probably not going to go anywhere, right? Like, we've all had those processes where we run a discovery call and then the deal just goes nowhere. And it's like, all right, not enough value was exchanged, not enough of a relationship was built,
That's right.
Not enough time was invested. And so I think it's very, very similar with the ADs, right? Like, they want to know that they are selling watches to people that are passionate about watches and have a love of the game. And that can't be done without spending face time with them, trying on different watches. And I think the other underrated part of it is like, you also got to be open-minded. Like, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that have walked into an AD and said, give me a Batman. And the salesperson's like, yeah, okay, buddy. Right. Whereas like, if you are open to their suggestions on something that they think might be a good fit for you, or something that may diversify or grow your collection that you weren't thinking about before. And I'm not saying to buy watches that you're not interested in buying, but like, be curious and be open-minded, right? I think with Patek Philippe specifically, right? Like, when I started that journey, I was like, I want an Aquanaut, I want a Nautilus, like, that's what I want, right? Like, those are the really, really hot pieces. And I spent probably over the course of a year and a half, at least 6 to 8 hours just sitting in the boutique, trying on complications, having them explain complications to me, having them explain grand complications to me. And like, that to me, it's not like, oh, that was a waste of time. That is stuff I'm interested in, right? And so like, they can actually see that we're having back and forth conversations. It's educational. And I actually really like appreciate that.
Yeah. It's really kind of like what you're describing here is in like the tech sales analogy. You've got like the commercial, transactional type of deals where it's a short sales cycle. You do one demo and they close, right? Like, that's not how this works with the AD, right? It's more so like an enterprise sales cycle where it's multiple months, maybe even, more than a year. You're investing time. There's value that you're adding at every stage of the process.
Yep.
literally both ways. Like you're getting educated, you're educating them. And that's how you actually crack this nut, right? So like for anybody in the tech sales world, like you think about these AD relationships like an enterprise sales process. And I think that's really interesting. What do you think are, and I know you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but just to get like real tactical, like what's like the number one or number two mistake that you see or hear guys making walking into an AD, expecting to build a relationship? Because I think a lot of guys get that they need to build a relationship and they want to go in person, but like what are the mistakes that they make when they go in that first time or even that second time in trying to build that relationship?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you are buying something and you're spending money, but you really shouldn't be leading with your needs, right? Like that's what I think ultimately makes people look really, really short term. So it's hard to say, hey, I'm coming in here and I want to build a relationship with you, but do this for me, right? Give me this, right? Because you have to think they've got hundreds of other people walking in off the street that are asking for the same thing, and they have to make that decision on who's the right person to sell a watch to, right? I think the other area is like the watch community online is kind of interesting. And you go and you read on Reddit and they're like, my ID made me buy this and buy this and buy that in order to get what I wanted. And that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. Like I've never once had that experience. I've never been asked to buy a watch that I didn't want in order to get the watch that I did want, right? And there's a way to be open and upfront about what you are trying to get, but don't limit it to one watch, right? Like when I talk with my AD, like I may say, I really like that watch and I want it, but I also like that watch and I also want that. So like, let's have a conversation about almost like a discovery call around like, what do I want? What's realistic? What's attainable? But let's have a roadmap. Let's have like a mutual action plan or a joint evaluation plan, if you want to really put it in salesy terms, And so I think if you go in there laser focused on one piece and that one piece happens to be a high demand watch, the relationship kind of hits a little bit of a skid right as it starts. Whereas again, being open-minded, being open to be educated on it, not saying buy something you don't want, but be open to looking at other things.
Yeah, I love that. That's such good advice. And I think I do hear all the time the same complaint. Like I had to buy this loser watch and that loser watch to have a chance to get on the list for this watch that I really want. Let's like kind of dispel the myth or kind of put it out there. Like, is there really a wait list at these ADs? Do wait lists really exist, or is it really all about like, hey, Tiki's the man, he's done it the right way, I'm going to put him at the top of the list. If he wants this, he'll have it. Like, how does this really work?
In my opinion, I think some places do use wait lists. I also don't think everyone does it the same, right? And that's why, again, I go back to the relationship building piece. And I think there's also a reason why this process takes time, right? Because you could build a really, really good relationship and still have to wait a long time for something. And that's just part of the game. So like I'll say, like if you can be patient and you are open to building the relationship, you are going to get something faster than someone else, right? But you also have to think and like put it into perspective. Like, who am I versus everyone else? Like, I have more of a relationship than someone who walks in off of the street. I may not have as much of a relationship as a very rich person that's like, hey, I spend $2 million there a year, right? So it's like you have to be really realistic about like kind of where you stand. But I think if you have a good enough relationship and you're also giving back, which we can talk about with referrals in a little bit, you stay top of mind a lot more easily. And I think people are a lot more transparent and they're a lot more realistic at the end of the day. Because I have friends that have tried to go in and kind of half-ass this with an AD, and they're getting told the wait time for a watch is like 5 to 7 years. Like that to me is like you're not even in the game at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think one of the key things that you mentioned is this concept of giving back, right? And that the relationship that you develop with the salesperson at the authorized dealer, the boutique, like whatever you want to call it, It has to be mutually beneficial. Obviously, you want the watch, right? That's why you're there.
Yep.
But you've got to be in a position, if you really want to make this work, to deliver something of value back to the boutique. And I'll give a couple examples. I think I shared this with you when we first talked on the phone. I have a couple folks in my network that, like you, pretty much get everything that they want from the boutique. And the way that they do it, so the first guy is a restaurant owner. He owns a chain of restaurants. Once a month, he caters the Rolex boutique. They get their lunch catered to them. It's whatever they want. They pick it on the menu. He feeds the entire boutique. When he wants something, he gets it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how this game works.
Yeah.
Now, the second example I'll share with you is another guy on my network is the manager of the Hermes boutique. And he walks into the Rolex AD, asks for something that he wants, and says, hey, by the way, if you need that, that handbag, right, from the Hermes boutique, come by and I'll hook you up. And so he gets what he wants at the Rolex boutique, and then they get the Birkin bag if they come in and ask for it, right?
Yep.
And it's that type of give and take. Now, not everybody has those type of resources. Not everybody owns or is a manager of a Hermes boutique and can do that. Not everybody owns a restaurant chain and can cater the Rolex boutique. So how did you do it? How did you get to this level of relationship? And maybe you can tell even a specific story, like what are you wearing on your wrist today? And like, what did it take for you to get that,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny, as you were mentioning your client with the restaurant, right? Like, I think that people appreciate when you do nice things for them. And I think that they appreciate it even more when there's not a specific ask tied to it, right? So the way that I've done this is ultimately it was referrals, right? Like, so I started working with a unnamed boutique in the Boston area, right? And there had to be a certain level of selflessness with it, but I think it comes naturally with people that work in sales. So I noticed that, there was a relationship between someone high up at HubSpot and someone high up at this boutique, right? And because of that relationship, they were offering discounts to HubSpot employees that were looking to purchase engagement rings, right? So I was like, here I am working at this company, this tech company, where the average age is 27. I'm like, there's got to be people getting engaged every single day, right? So I actually bought my wife's engagement ring, had a phenomenal experience with them. And they just said, hey, if there's other HubSpot people looking for stuff like this, like, let us know. It was not like snake oily at all. They were just kind of like, you had a great experience. If you want to have other people have great experience, let's do it, right? And so I remember it was 2013, and I went on our like company wiki, and I just posted and said, hey, I had a great experience at XYZ boutique. They helped me out. If anyone else is looking for a personal introduction, they are offering discounts for HubSpot employees. And that's where it started. Immediately, I got like 10 people that are like, hey, I'm thinking about proposing. Can you put me in touch? And so it started from a selfless place, actually, before I bought my first Rolex from them.
Yeah.
I bought the engagement ring.
My goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. I bought the engagement ring. I bought the wedding bands, and I was sending a lot of that kind of business to them. Right. And it just turned into this thing where like I became that subject matter expert within the company, where people are like, oh, hey, I actually heard that you introduced this person and they had a great experience. And so it turned into this immediate funnel where like, it was actually a few years of just give, right? And not actually expecting anything in return. And even to this day, when I send a referral, it's because I care about helping them grow their business. It's not because I'm like, hey, give me a watch, right? But when there is a watch that I want, I don't bring up any of the referrals or anything like that. I just say, hey, I'm interested in this. Like, what does it look like? Are you seeing a bunch of them? And they're totally honest at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it's unspoken, the mutual, benefit that you've been able to offer each other. And that's the way that it should be at that point. And so what are you wearing on the wrist today?
Yes. So interestingly, I have a vintage Rolex Pepsi from 1983, the 16750. little bit of vintage love here.
And so why did you choose that one?
It's interesting. So as you can tell from this conversation, 99% of what I buy, I get from my AD. Now I do go secondary market when it is vintage, right?
Yeah.
And so this one, I've always wanted a vintage Pepsi, like always. I do love the modern Pepsi, as hard as it is to find. I do love it. I don't own it. And I started to notice, like, when the economy was dipping and secondary market prices started to go down, like a watch I had seen listed at 15, 16, 17, up to 25K, depending if you're looking at the 1675s, was down in that 11K range and that 10K range, right? And so I was like, let me go pull the trigger on it. I bought this one from European Watch Company on Newbury Street in Boston. They got a nice brand new office, really, really nice staff, very, very professional. And so went in, tried it on, looked at this one versus 3 other ones that they had, and ended up pulling the trigger on it.
Nice. Good one.
Yep.
And so, of the 3 major brands that are most sought after in the watch industry, you've got Patek, you've got AP, you've got Rolex. What was the hardest manufacturer brand for you to crack to get that, most desirable watch?
I would say it was probably Rolex, and I think it's probably because I was asking for a lot of the wrong stuff. Like, I think, like, I have no shame in admitting, right? Like, I've always been into watches. I'm passionate about it. Like, I was buying them before the market went nuts, but I also got a little into the, like, give me all the hype watches, right? And so I think it's just like hype watch after hype watch, even with the AD relationship, like me, it's kind of like, what are you actually looking to do with your collection? So I think I struggled with that with Rolex, but I think Patek Philippe has taught me a lot about what it's like to actually build a well-rounded collection, right? Because you've got different degrees to these watches and different complications, right? And so I remember when I got my Aquanaut, the 5968G, I have it here actually, right? Like, I was actually trying to buy this in steel, and I was trying to buy the date only 5167, and I wanted to have that as a daily, right? And when I got offered the complication, I still wanted the 5167 as a daily. And the response is kind of like, yeah, we can look into that, but like, what are you actually trying to do with your collection? And that was actually like a bit of challenging that I appreciated, where I was like, what am I trying to build? And now I am trying to purposefully curate my collection and have a lot more diversity in it. So I think Rolex was the hardest to crack, but Patek was the most educational.
That's interesting. And you've used the phrase complications a couple times. And for those that may not understand, like, what you're referencing, can you just kind of explain it like a third grader? What is a complication when you're talking about watches?
Yeah, a complication is just something that your watch does, right? So for example, if you have a watch that's very simple and it's time only, it's literally only showing you the time, right? If you've got a watch that's time and date, it's also showing you the date. If you've got a watch that is a day date, it's showing you the day and the date, right? So the complication is really just an extra feature that your watch has.
That's right. And the most common complications are like a date feature, a chronograph feature, very common as well. And you can get, very, very complicated, if you will, as you move up to even like, moon phases, annual calendars that, factor leap year. I mean, it's wild what they've been able to program into these watches. And I think that's another really interesting thing is like, these aren't like necessarily watches. They're really precision instruments. I mean, like, they're engineered in Switzerland by these watchmakers that are, I mean, they're almost like, the analogy that I would use is, that person that's in Maranello, Italy, that's designing the engine of a Ferrari.
Yep.
And engineering it and implementing it into, the back of the vehicle. it's really the same process that these watchmakers are doing in Switzerland, like the engineering and the precision that they're using to actually build the complications and the timekeeping instruments within the watch itself, because these aren't battery operated watches. Like, they are automatic timekeeping instruments that gives the pieces intrinsic value, even on top of, the intrinsic value associated with the precious metal that the watch may have, like gold or platinum or stainless steel.
Yep. There was a great 60 Minutes segment that went deep with the elderly watchmaker that talked about like what goes into it, how long do I work on it, and that was really, really eye-opening, because I think for people that haven't researched complications, right, like it's really easy to look at the price tag of a watch and be like, that's not worth it, right? But then now, especially with Patek, as you look at what some of these watches can do and what goes into making them, and the fact that some of them are literal rare handcrafts, you're like, that is why the price tag is what it is. So I needed to do a little bit of that research to start to get to a place where once I got into like the really high end watches, it's like, that is why this is priced where it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I talk a lot about on LinkedIn with my content that, a watch is more than just a store of value or an asset. It can also be a networking tool. Yeah. And I personally have benefited from wearing a watch in a business setting multiple times, where I've actually been able to get new business opportunities generated literally just from wearing a watch, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so is there an example of a watch that you've worn where you've, found some type of new business opportunity as a result of wearing it on your wrist?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give you like an example of just even internal networking, right? Like HubSpot's a huge company. There are a lot of people that are into watches, but a funny example is I always used to notice that our CMO was rocking heat on the wrist, right? Whether it was like a full rose gold AP, or rocking a rose gold Nautilus or something like that. And so, I started this collection in the beginning of 2017. Buying the sub no date was my first Rolex, right? Being like, yeah, I'll probably never be able to have a conversation with that guy about watches. Like, now we're at a place where, when in the rare chance that I get to see him in person, it's like, what's on your wrist? What's on my wrist? What's next? He's asking me like, hey, yeah, maybe you should introduce me to some of your people, right? And so like, that's just one cool example where like, that is something that like we've bonded about and we've talked about. And it's really cool knowing that this is something that he's also into. I'll give you another example. This is a wild story, but my buddy texted me, I think it was in September, and he's like, hey, I've got tickets to the Pats game Sunday. Do you want to go? And I was like, dude, I've moved to Connecticut. Like, I've got 2 little kids. Like, the thought of coming up to Gillette in the morning and being there all day and selling it to my wife, I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, no, I can't go. And he's like, let me try this again. I have tickets to the Pats game. We are going to be in the Fanatics suite. Michael Rubin's going to be there. Jay-Z is going to be there. Wahlberg might be there. There's a bunch of athletes that are going to be there. Do you want to come? I was like, hell yeah, I want to come. Right. And so I walk into that suite and I'm immediately like, oh man, I don't belong here. Right. It's like Fanatics high rollers combined with high roller gamblers, and then just little old me. Right. And I rocked the green Aquanaut that I showed. And it's interesting. I met a couple of Red Sox players. Roman Anthony was one of them, who just, I think, signed a huge contract and is apparently baseball's version of the new Gronk in Boston. And I walked right up to him. First off, I didn't know who he was, but I was like, hey, the sunlight's hitting that watch. It's blinding me. What is it? And he was like, oh, I just got this. And he shows me 40 millimeter day date with the olive green dial. And I was like, that's a beauty. And we start talking. And then he goes, yeah, but what I'm really working myself up towards is what you have on your wrist. And he points to the Aquanaut. Yep. And I'm like, damn, I'm pretty sure this guy just signed like a multi-million-dollar contract, and he's talking about working up to it. So it was an interesting one where like you have imposter syndrome when you're in a room like that. And like the watch game was just like the great equalizer. And it's not people like flexing their watches. It's talking about like their passion and their love for watches. So that was another cool one. Jay-Z was wearing a $4 million factory diamond 80s Daytona, which was sick.
Did you get to talk to Jay-Z?
I talked with him very briefly, not about watches.
Okay. Yeah.
But I did get a picture with him, which is cool. And I have I got a picture of another big watch guy that was there showing him what was on his wrist while Jay-Z was looking at it. So I'll have to text you this.
That's amazing. I mean, this is what watches are, right? I mean, like business networking tools, icebreakers. I mean, walking into a suite with that level of money, right? And being able to go up and talk to these guys because of the watch that you're wearing on your wrist as the icebreaker, as the opener, to put everyone at ease and actually be wearing something that one of the other guys is aspiring towards. It creates instant connection and it makes you memorable. And I'm sure as soon as you started to have those conversations, you're like, okay, I belong here and this is cool, right?
Yep.
Like you're
immediately eased into it.
Yeah. I mean, like if you walk into that room without that watch, like maybe you find a way to kind of like connect with someone, but it's going to be a lot harder, right?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I asked my friend why he brought me and he was like, oh, I knew you'd get us pictures with all these celebrities.
No way. That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, your buddy's smart. He definitely knew, he knew what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. A couple more questions for you. What's a watch that you think people overpay for, right? And I guess like overpay for would be on the secondary market, right? It's like either you've experienced this watch and it's not worth it, what people are paying, or maybe you have an opinion based off of some other observation.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I have a lot of friends that are like, hey, I want to be a one watch person. Like, you're always talking to me about relationship building. You're always offering to introduce me to your AD. Like, I just want this one watch and I'm out, right? And usually it doesn't go that way because you get your one watch and you're like, oh, I'm actually in, right? Like, I want more. And so I think I've seen this multiple times, even just with friends, right? Where I offer to put them in touch with the AD. I say, hey, build a relationship, right? And they're like, nope, I want this right now. And it's the most desirable. It's really two pieces. One is, I think your boy Julian's going to kill me here, but it's the Steel Daytona, the Panda. Like, and look, I will say this is a personal, opinion. I told you about my kind of hype journey with Rolex. Like, I had it, and it didn't get prioritized in my collection, and I probably had it for 2 years. And another part I like about the relationship with the AD is like, I always buy everything to like wear it and keep it, but sometimes things get deprioritized, and that's the point at which I have the conversation about trading it in, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I've had several friends buy a Panda for 30K, or I've seen as high as 35K, and I'm like, if you're getting into over 30K, like, let's look precious metal, and I just have a very different mindset with it. Like, over 30K for a steel watch.
I know. And that's 2x the MSRP, right? So I mean,
yes,
you're really overpaying.
Really, really overpaying. I've seen it also with anyone who wants a specific GMT, like right when it comes out. I had friends pay 22, 25K for the Sprite. Like great watches, but like steel is steel. And I think, again, going down this Patek journey has also taught me more of that, where I'm like, if you're going to spend upwards of 35 grand and like there's something else you could buy with a complication, like that's just where my mindset has shifted. Like, I'm putting that money into a Patek weekly calendar any day of the week instead of a Daytona not from an AD. Right.
Awesome. And last question for you, and then we'll kind of make a transition. And by the way, if anybody that's in the audience, like if you have questions, just throw them into the chat. We'll bring them up, and we'll definitely give an opportunity for some Q&A here.
Yeah.
What's next on your list?
This is it's tough question. I have so many different things I want. So we can categorize it in a couple of different ways. So I think on the Patek end, I like there's a new watch that came out. I think it's 5196P. It's a Calatrava with a salmon dial in platinum.
Ooh,
is high on my
salmon
list.
dials get me every time.
Yeah, so like it's interesting. Like I've gone down already, like kind of the classic Calatrava route. Like it's probably one of my favorite watches, the 6119R. It's the dress watch I wear anytime I dress up. I want a little bit more versatility and to build out the dress watch end of my collection, and I also don't have any platinum. So I think that's squarely the next Patek that I want. From a Rolex perspective, Daytona on Oyster Flex. I've been trying those on quite a bit. I like them a lot. I think the gold with the Newman dial is like a favorite of mine and has always been on my list.
Yeah. Those are two outstanding pieces. I'm pulling for you.
I did have a question for you though. Like,
okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, like I've been reading a lot of your content. Again, I love seeing the watch content out there. You talk a lot about like watch depreciation, right? I feel like I've been talking to you purely about watch appreciation. So
yeah,
how does depreciation work with watches, and how does that kind of factor into your business and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the watch market is really interesting. It's actually very similar to the car market. And I know we talked a little bit about like the Ferrari engine and the engineer that goes into that, or engineering that goes into that, and the complications in a watch and engineering that goes into that. Watches and cars are also very similar in that they also both do experience depreciation curves. Now there are watches like those that you've described today, like the Daytona, like the Nautilus, like the Aquanaut, like a Royal Oak, for example, that you walk into an AD, you ask for it, they don't have it, and when you do get it and you walk out, it appreciates in value. Those type of watches in the luxury watch market, it's like less than 1% of models that are produced every year, right? And so what happens with the other 99% of watches, luxury watches, and like these are pieces from really great brands like Cartier, Hublot, Breitling, Omega, right? I mean, IWC, Zenith, like really outstanding luxury brands, Blancpain, Ulysse Nardin.
Yep.
They all depreciate the minute you walk out of the boutique. And, so a car will depreciate and kind of reach that plateau of depreciation where then the value of the car will just be based on like mileage and condition. Watches reach that depreciation kind of plateau pretty quickly. And what's interesting though is that they sit there and they will slowly begin to rise back up as the manufacturers raise MSRPs, and then in the secondary market that has an uplifting effect to it. So really what I do within my business at TimelySoles, like I'm not an authorized dealer where I'm handing out like a Rolex Batman at retail or a Patek Nautilus at retail. Like that's not my business model. Like I operate in the secondary market, and what I help watch enthusiasts do is to not lose money on their watches. So I get them into watches where they don't take that depreciation hit that happens with 99% of these watches. They purchase it correctly, they purchase it safely and securely. So then that watch then becomes an asset on their wrist. And the benefit of wearing these watches then becomes it's a place where you can reliably park cash on the wrist. It also then becomes a business networking tool. And then in many cases, I think brands like Ulysse Nardin and Hublot have done a really good job with design, and it becomes wearable art on the wrist as well. So it's really advising clients on whether you're first time into watches or you've got a big collection. It's advising on how to build that collection in a way where you're not like losing money to the depreciation that happens when you're buying an MSRP or when you're buying it brand new at the boutique, buying it correctly, and then you're really looking at these pieces as assets. It's something that I've done for quite some time, and I'm just a big fan of alternative assets in general, because you can really do this with a lot of different things. Like it's not just watches. You can do this with handbags. You can do this with art. You can do this with sports memorabilia and sports cards,
Yeah.
where if you know how to purchase these pieces correctly, you understand when to buy them, how to securely purchase them. They then just become assets, and that was like when I first started in sales. I built a lot of my wealth around alternative assets. I was investing in stocks in the 401ks too, but I was investing pretty heavily in these other things that gave me experiences and opened up networking and relationships that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been putting money into it.
Yep. At first, I thought I was lucky that my wife wasn't into the handbag game, but I started to, a lot of it's pattern recognition, right? As you look across the luxury markets, like I was saying to her the other day, I'm like, if you wanted a Birkin, I'm sure I can get you one. I'm like, I don't know how the market works, but it can't be that different, But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I've talked a lot about like how I work with my AD. There's also brands my AD doesn't carry, or there's vintage watches that I might want to look for, and like they know that, and they're good with that, right? So I think there's businesses like TimelySoles. I work with European Watch in Boston a lot. I work with there's a new material good opening, and so shout out to my friend Shelly, who's opening up that boutique in Boston, right? But there's a lot of other subject matter experts out there, and I think there's a place for ADs, and I think there's a place for secondary market as well.
Yeah, the global luxury watch market is about $70 to $75 billion per year. It's massive, and the secondary market is actually growing faster than the primary market, and is nearly at a 50-50 share of that total global revenue. So it's a very fast growing market. It's an exciting market for me to be in. It gives me really unique opportunities to meet guys like you, to literally have like business owners, CEOs of companies that call me. I think they call me and talk to me more than they talk to their wives. And it's because Eric's my buddy that likes watches, and I like to just talk about watches with him because I have all this stress in my day. So I'm just gonna give him a call and like just see what's up, And those type of connections I've been able to create are pretty incredible. Like I've been flown out to LA for watch visits. I've been invited and participated in exotic car rallies, literally all because of watches. It all starts with a watch, and then it ends up in some like unbelievable experience. And it's like, wow, that was amazing. I can't wait to see what's next. And I'm just going to continue to play in this industry and participate in it. And if I continue to do so with integrity, like this thing's going to be amazing.
I love it. Question for you. Do you normally say like, hey, I have a bunch of inventory and people are looking at it and buying it? Or are you getting those connections that are like, can you find this for me or like source it? I'm just a pure curiosity question.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because I do carry a lot of inventory. The inventory is on my website, TimelySoles.com, in my new arrival section. But on LinkedIn, I do a lot of business on LinkedIn. I get a lot of inbound inquiries. I also advertise my TimelySoles brand on LinkedIn too. So I'm getting a lot of inbound leads like organically and through advertisements. And in the majority of the work that I'm doing on LinkedIn is in the business, which is called brokering, right? So like I have a global network of dealers that I trust, select dealers that I trust. I've done a lot of business with, and we generally just share inventory back and forth, right? So like they'll call me because I have something that I specialize in that their client needs. I give it to them, and then they sell it to their client. And then I call him and he offers the same thing to me because one of my clients or someone on LinkedIn has asked for it. So I'd say like inventory sales is probably about like 60%, 65% of my business and my revenue. And then everything else is I'm just like, hunting for it. I find it, procure it for my client, and then make it available to them. A really interesting stat is that, so like last year, the watch that I sold the most of was Rolex. Not really a surprise there, but what might be a surprise to some is that, and I probably sold about like 70 to 75 Rolexes last year. and I only stocked 2. And the reason I only stocked 2 is because they came in as trades from some of my clients that wanted to get into something else and use the Rolex as a credit. But because Rolex is so liquid, and because I have access to like trusted dealers or even my own clients, that might have one, I don't have to stock them, right? I can find a Rolex. I can find any Rolex in like 24 hours, like 99% of them, because they're so liquid and so accessible. So I don't really like tie my inventory up in a Rolex, but it's a very quick moving product for me and very popular product for me for all those reasons.
Very cool. I have one more question for you if we have time.
Yeah, man, we got time.
Where do you go for like your watch content, right? Like I think I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this have been down YouTube rabbit holes and watched 47th Street fast flips and Roman Sharp and all that. But I'm just curious, like where do you go to take in for the true enthusiasts? Like where do you go in to take in good watch content?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm actually part of a network of watch dealers called the Watch Trading Academy. And the Watch Trading Academy it's a closed group. It's a private group you've got to kind of be a member of. And there are a couple guys within this group that are on the inside of the industry and have been so on the inside of the industry for 20 plus years. And with me participating in this community, I'm able to absorb information from them that then informs a lot of like what I'm forecasting for the industry, a lot of what I'm advising my clients around when it comes to a timepiece, and some of my content that I publish on LinkedIn. And really the rest of it just comes from personal experience, right? So like I had a post that I put up on LinkedIn on Monday about a client of mine that wanted to buy a watch at the Breitling boutique. He wasn't treated, in his opinion, very fairly by the boutique sales staff. And so he called me, he said, "Hey, can you get this for me? I know that I shouldn't be paying MSRP for it, but I couldn't get them to budge on it." And I was able to get it for him, right? And so it's literally just a story of like, hey, this happened to me last week. I think this might be interesting for someone to learn about like the watch industry and how it operates. And I just throw it up on LinkedIn. So a lot of the content just comes from personal experience.
Yeah. I think the one that hooked me was the like, should I buy the $8,000 watch or invest it? And there was just like hundreds of comments there. So I think this is clearly like something people want to talk about on LinkedIn, especially tech salespeople.
It is, yeah. That was a fun one. That was a fun. I don't know if Max is on the LinkedIn Live here, but it was his post where, and I think we'll kind of end with this thought because I think it's a really good one because, his dilemma was like, should I buy this Omega Speedmaster to get like entry into the watch club at Salesforce? And he basically did this whole like math gymnastics around if I spend the $7K now versus if I invest it, by the time I'm 70, I could have $700,000. Yeah. I think I'd rather have $700,000 when I'm 70. And my point to him was like, I don't think you're looking at this the right way. Because like you could have $700,000, like theoretically, right? If you put that amount of money, down now and you wait 50 years or whatever it is, however old he is. Or you could get entry into that watch network at Salesforce, and maybe somebody within that network can be enormously influential in your career or for you personally. And that may accelerate your trajectory of actually making money at a rate that the money that you could generate through that relationship and through that network could far surpass anything that you could expect to generate from like, putting that money into a stock index fund or whatever for the next 40 years. And by the way, it's going to be far more exciting and the experiences that you'll have from that will be memorable. And when you're 70, you'll look back at that like that was so much fun. Yep. I'm so glad that I did that, right? And that's why I believe, a luxury timepiece is something that everybody should look at. You should think about it strategically. Like it's not a time-telling instrument. Like it is a ticket. When you use it correctly in a social circle, it's like, think about the story that you just shared about the luxury box at the Patriots game. Like that, it is a ticket. Like you were able to hang out and talk to and be memorable with guys that just play at a different level of money, frankly. Right?
It's
crazy.
Another quick one for you. Like I don't go around posting my watches on like Instagram or anything like that. But I've had multiple celebrities respond when I respond to their watch stories based on what I'm asking or what I'm saying, right? Like I've got a ESPN anchor, Gary Struski, who's a big watch guy, right? Like he just went through posting like different watch a day for 30 days. Like we talk about watches on Instagram all the time. Like I'm sure he's got hundreds of thousands of followers, but like he's a watch enthusiast. And, we started just talking watches because I asked him a question about his watch and he's like, oh, you know about this stuff. And right. And like now randomly we'll shoot the shit about it. Right. So it's like, I don't get anything out of that, but I'm like, oh, that's cool. Right. Like this dude's like a big deal, but like clearly passionate about watches and willing to talk about it with anyone, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, Tiki, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was so much fun. And I learned stuff that I didn't know before. I'm sure everybody that's hung out with us has learned something as well. This has been super cool. So we will have a replay available of this on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn live page for TimelySoles, Eric Walters. We're also going to post this on YouTube as well, and under the TimelySoles brand too. So a lot of fun, and I know there's going to be like some more people checking this out because it's been such a cool conversation. So Tiki, thank you so much, man. What a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate your time and appreciate what you're doing. Like I want my feed to keep having watches on it, not just sales advice. So keep doing what you're doing.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support and love.
Absolutely. Later, my pleasure.
All right. Yeah. See you later. Bye.